everybody, and welcome to Global Trends, the digital talk show for everyone with a passion for agriculture, broadcast live on BKT Network. We have created a completely new format for you. We will bring you more exclusive content than ever before, and we will do so focusing on some of the most significant global trends in agriculture today. Trends that everyone needs to know about and that no one can afford to ignore. We will, of course, deliver on our original promise to entertain and inform. In a few words, Global Trends is going to surprise you. You'll know how proud we are of BKT Network's reach, streaming to 160 countries in every corner of the world and reaching more than 2.5 million views, as well as 4.9 million impressions. And this time as well, we are thinking big. 8 live episodes, with 1 episode delivered per month about the most important trends in agriculture, technology and smart farming, soil health, the generation shift, women in agriculture, water use, climate change, organic farming and marketing in agriculture. And guess what? We will have some excellent guests from all over the world joining us on Global Trends in the months ahead, so don't miss it. Also, I won't be doing this alone. Let me introduce my new co-host. He's an agricultural communication specialist who has worked with some of the industry's biggest brands, helping them to understand changing marketplaces and new developments. It's my pleasure to welcome Adrian Bell. Welcome to Global Trends, Adrian.
Thanks, Anne-Helena. It's different, isn't it, being on the other side of the camera? Can you give me any tips? You're a pro.
Just be yourself, speak from your heart, smile a lot, and never fluff your lines.
Good point. I'll do my best. Right, so what am I here to do? Well, over the course of the talk show, I'm going to take you through 8 topics. Subjects such as the importance of soil health, young people in farming, women in farming, just as Anne-Helena just mentioned, and with discussions amongst guests here in the studio and remotely connected, and stories from the world outside. Together, we're going to explore and investigate exactly why these agricultural big-ticket items are so important.
Yes, this is an exciting new format that Adrian and I are going to deliver together. I hope that you will stay tuned for each one of our episodes and that you'll feel inspired by what you will hear, because that's what it's all about, inspiring each other. Don't forget that this new talk show will be broadcast on BKT Network and on all BKT social channels. So without further ado, I think we're all set for the first Global Trends topic. Adrian?
Let's get going, thank you. Shall we begin with agricultural technology and smart farming? You see, about 12,000 years ago, we had the original agricultural revolution.
Yes, that was the start of farming, when humans went from hunting and gathering to settlement and agriculture, the beginning of civilization.
Absolutely, exactly that. Then we had the Industrial Revolution, which brought us farm machinery, before the Green Revolution brought us fertilizers and chemicals, which pushed crop yields ever higher, feeding the world and its growing population.
And today the world is talking about agri-tech, which is the next revolution.
Right again. Today, we're on the cusp of the 4th agricultural revolution. It's been described as the future of farming, and that's exactly what it is. Agri-tech is the application of technology to farming to improve yield, efficiency, and, most importantly, profitability of farming.
Please develop on this, Adrian. What makes agri-tech so special?
Well, what typically marks out agri-tech is the combination of data, artificial intelligence, automation, and even autonomy. Sophisticated technologies like robots, remote moisture and temperature sensors, satellite imagery, drones, all these would have seemed more at home in a lab just a few years ago, but now they're coming to a field near you. Everywhere in the world, farmers now have access to a diverse range and forms of agri-tech. From remote weather stations that measure the moisture levels on a plant leaf, to warn a farmer of disease risk, to the imaging software that helps growers target fertilizers and herbicides more precisely than ever before. And in some countries, farmers are even allowed to use drones to spray fields, autonomous drone formations that can spray in just 1 hour what a human could tackle only in a day.
But agritech isn't limited to only crops, is it?
No, of course not. Livestock benefits too. For example, there are sensors that will tell a farmer not only when a cow is about to calve, but when another cow is about to get sick, before she even shows any outward symptoms. What's remarkable is how these technologies have attracted funding. In 2020, the specialist investment house AgFunda reported that farm tech deals were up 370% in just 6 years. And now big tech companies such as Google, Microsoft and Amazon now have their own specialist farming divisions, looking to share their expertise in artificial intelligence and the collection, management and analysis of data with an entirely new audience. The big questions to ask, well, I think predominantly, what will agri-tech mean for farming and farmers? Can it be successfully deployed on a global scale? And significantly, what will farms of the future look like?
Well, Adrian, that's some introduction. Thank you for that. I'm sure that today's guests will bring us the answers to all your questions, and I'm excited to present them to our audience. Today, as in all upcoming episodes, our guests are amazing people coming from around the world. Let's start off with some more scene setting. These days, if you're farming in Turkey and you're in the market for a new tractor, then there's one source you always turn to, Traktormetre. It's the ultimate guide to tractors and agricultural technology. And the man behind it is its presenter and producer, Ömer Kuloglu. Ömer, welcome to Global Trends. Welcome. It's good to see you here. Adrian, I leave you guys to it.
Thank you very much. Ömer, let's start with a bit of an introduction, shall we? Journalist in Turkey, you've got a YouTube channel, I think, with some 63,000 subscribers. It's a show about tractors and tractor technology. But the big trend in agriculture at the moment, of course, is agtech and smart farming. Why is agtech attracting so much attention from farmers and others in the industry?
Well, in Turkey, our farmers love smart technology and we love to cover it. But economic issues often mean very few of them can actually use it themselves. But they all know the benefits.
So is that one of the biggest barriers then, the cost of it?
Yes, cost is an issue, but another big problem, especially in Turkey, is the average age of farmers. Here it's about 60 years old. And we need the young generation to use this technology.
The growing age of farmers is a problem all over the world, but given the general demographic of a YouTube user, the younger generation itself, does that mean your subscriber base is generally young too?
About 70% of my followers are between 13 and 45 years old. Yes, I'm trying to catch them with smart farming.
I hope it's working well. What are some of the examples of smart farming stories you've covered on Traktormetre?
One of our farmers, Sencer Solakoğlu, is one of the best examples for smart farming. He tried to break high-yield world record about corn. His farm is in Bursa, northwest of Turkey. He uses precision planting and also auto-steer tractors for his farming. These were basic agtech for his attempt. Last year, he tried more than 80 scenarios, different seeds, different fertilizers, different row spacing, etc. He used sensors and measured everything about the process, temperature of soil, moisture, etc. Finally, he made a report that has more than 1,000 pages. And the result was about 3,000 kilos per hectare, 600 kilos less than the world record.
So close, but even technology couldn't give him that edge to break the world record.
Well, it came down to weather issues in the end, but he said to me that I'm a marathon runner and that was my first training.
It's a typical farmer attitude, isn't it? Never give up. Do keep us posted on how he does next season. Now, you're into tractors, Ömer. Since they appeared on farms in the 20th century, they have themselves, of course, been a form of ag tech. The latest one's no exception, certainly packed with all sorts of technology and different facilities. From my own visits to Turkey, I've made a number to look at farming over the last few years. I know how important tractors are in Turkish agriculture. They seem to be everywhere. There are just loads, aren't there?
2 million tractors, yes.
What are some of the interesting trends you're seeing with the latest iteration of AgTech on tractors in Turkey, Ömer? Are farmers interested in having more modern, more better equipped tractors to use?
Some of the Turkish farmers use the top technologies from manufacturers, yes, but it is only a small proportion, 1 or 2%, who can really benefit from tractors like that.
You've recently been a judge on the Tractor of the Year Awards, and of course that's a role which puts you in the cab and in the driving seat of a lot of tractors in the process. What are some of the technologies and features that have interested you from this year's judging?
I think the most common things are simple things. Better ease of use, lower fuel consumption, and so on. There is less worry about things like emission compliance, to be honest.
You've mentioned cost again and the expense as being barriers for Turkish farmers to adopt these new agri-technologies. Can you give me, or give our viewers in fact, any examples of lower cost technologies that are becoming more popular in Turkey?
Most of the technologies in agriculture are coming in from Europe and America. And with our currency issues at the moment, most of these remain out of reach to Turkish farmers. But I think the most interesting thing, certainly from a tractor point of view, is in the Turkish tractor market. The highest horsepower tractor available from domestic manufacturers is 120 horsepower, and that is not fully electronic. So if a farmer wants to have a tractor that is more advanced, they have to go for a foreign manufacturer.
Mm-hmm. And so despite those barriers that you've described, the obstacles to AgTech, presumably you still cover technology stories for your viewers?
Yes, of course. This young generation is the next generation. They need to know what is available and how it is used. They should at least see them, understand how they can use them.
I wish we had a little bit more time to go into some of those details, but you've been great. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Ömer, for coming all the way from beautiful Turkey to share your views with us. We will see you again at the end of the show.
Thank you.
So what do you think of it?
Fascinating. I mean, I think it's always interesting to have a journalist's point of view on things, to give that different aspect. And it's exactly why I've picked another journalist as our next guest to tell us things from a slightly different perspective.
Okay, so then let's connect to our next guest. Based in the Hudson Valley, north of New York City, she's got something of a passion for the crossover of agriculture and technology, something she's explored through an award-winning documentary and multimedia project. From farms to incubators, let's welcome Amy Wu. Hello, Amy. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me here today.
Over to you, Adrian.
Thanks, Anna-Lena. Amy, it really is great to have you with us today, and I'm very excited to chat with the person who's behind this fabulous initiative that I've heard so much about. You heard what Ömer, our first guest, just had to say about AgTech and tractors, but agriculture is always going to be an industry where people are valuable too. What opportunity does AgTech create for our agricultural workforce?
Well, Adrian, I would say it creates a tremendous opportunity for a more diverse workforce. I mean, AgTech requires a new, if not completely extended, set of skills and talent that are much more diverse than traditional agriculture. So this often includes skills related to STEM, that's science, technology, engineering, and math. And there's a continued push, especially here in the US, to get more young people, youth, especially underrepresented youth, and also people of color into the STEM field. So this opens a tremendous amount of job opportunities, I think, in the food systems and in agriculture, to a population that frankly has not traditionally been in agriculture, especially in AgTech.
And what makes that diversity so important, Amy? We hear a lot about it, but what are the big factors in it?
I mean, I think that diversity is critical because, well, first and foremost, I think there's the opportunity in AgTech. I mean, farmers are facing some of the biggest threats that they face, a lot of it coming under, climate change. So as I noted earlier, we need new skills if we're going to fight climate change. I mean, some of the problems related to this include water and land shortage issues, severe drought. You know, here in the U.S. and California, it's becoming more and more dry, and here in the Northeast, it's becoming wetter and wetter. And also, field workers are aging out internationally. I mean, the average age being in the 50s and 60s, and the next generation certainly not wanting to return to the fields themselves. So generations are also shifting. So, you know, where does ag tech fit in? I can give a couple of examples. I mean, number one, developing seeds that are more farmer friendly. You know, one of the companies that I've been focused on and writing on is Inari, and they develop seeds that are perhaps more pest and disease resistant or need less water. Another company that I've noted in my book and film is the Bee Corps, started by a young woman named Ellie Sims in the Midwest. And it has a mobile app that basically grades the quality of beehives, which is tremendously helpful for the almond growers in Central Valley, California. That's a tremendous industry of $6 billion. And they need bees to pollinate their almonds. So those are a couple of examples there.
Fascinating examples you've picked there, and I know that that's only the tip of the iceberg, but both of them demonstrate the sort of tangible benefit that just one aspect of ag tech is bringing to the industry, this ability to make crops more resilient in the face of climate change, more resistant to growing and emerging diseases, so that we can practice, obviously, a more sustainable form of agriculture. But sticking with diversity for now, I want to stick with that because that was the initial inspiration behind your documentary, wasn't it? Tell us more about it. If I remember correctly, you thought agriculture had a problem with tech innovation.
Oh, I did think that agriculture had a problem with tech innovation and the fact that there was a lack of visible, at least diversity. I was a journalist in the Salinas Valley, California, and that's how I got into writing about women in ag tech. And it's a $9 billion industry there for agriculture, and also about 85% of the leafy greens that we eat here in the US are produced in the Salinas Valley. But I certainly did not visibly see women leaders, you know, at the forefront of agribusinesses or even farms themselves. So I decided to search for women founders in agri-food tech and amplify their stories and their voices. And I think it's not just about telling the stories, it's about the greater objective and goal is to really create a hub, a network, a community where they can come together and actually help each other, find each other, share resources, but also where farmers and you know, educators, policymakers, and investors can also connect with women in this area as well. So that's the greater mission, I think, of the project From Farms to Incubators, and also the documentary serving as a vehicle for discussion.
And beyond those basic requirements of equality and diversity and so on, do you believe women bring something different to ag tech?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they do. I mean, women already play a tremendous role, I think, in the food systems and the farming systems. They're often the one making the decisions around food, whether it be, you know, in the kitchen or for their households as well. And I think internationally, women produce and also are part of 60 to 80% of agriculture internationally. So, and there are also many women now working in food systems and agriculture, but it remains a male dominated field and culture where women's contributions, their perspectives, their ideas are not really sought out and heard. So the exciting thing though, Adrienne, is there's a new generation of women, a lot of them in their 20s and 30s, you know, into their 40s, who have skills, as I mentioned, STEM, that fit into what ag tech requires. And they also are very entrepreneurial, creative, innovative, and they all care about sustainability, addressing sustainability, climate change, and also making money and having a successful business. So I think there's the combination, certainly, of those three. And they're very attracted to ag tech, and also they have a lot to offer. They really want to tackle big impact issues and have a long-term impact with the food system and with agriculture as well. So I think it's very, very exciting, and their knowledge and perspective brings quite a lot to ag tech.
Now, you've just about touched on another point there, Amy, which I'd like to explore a bit further. These new entrants are, to some degree, providing much needed R&D resources to our industry too, aren't they?
Yes, they are. I mean, big agribusiness companies increasingly, obviously, are interested in ag tech. Not just interested, they're actually investing in it and using it themselves, but they are also tapping a lot of the ag tech, quote unquote, startups, the newer companies, and a lot of them with involvement with women and the new generation as well. And they bring a different perspective. They bring a different set of skills often that are very specialized. So I certainly think that they're either acquiring the companies or bringing them in to work with them in partnership to address some of the problems that agriculture has. So I think it's very positive. You know, companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and so forth are all involved in ag tech in some way. Some of it is in-house and they have their staff of R&D, but many other times they actually seek now ag tech companies that can also bring a lot to smart farming for their companies.
Now, we're covering a lot of ground here, Amy, in a very short time, but I'd like to go back to one of those earlier points you mentioned, fewer field workers being available. Do you think tech's going to replace them?
That's an excellent question. So I do not think that tech is going to replace them. And actually, the beauty of ag tech is that actually it creates, as I mentioned earlier, a new need for skills, a knowledge-based workforce. So we still need people who have that knowledge and wherewithal to operate different innovations such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, robotics and automation. It takes a new set of knowledge and skills, research in the laboratory as well, and also marketing and communication. So it actually extends the opportunities, I think, for not just a new generation and youth, but anybody who's really interested in this area as well. So I think that it's going to require the traditional set of skills. I mean, certainly we still need people in the fields as well who have that knowledge of harvesting, planting, and, you know, the weather, but also this new set of skills. So, you know, and from Farms to Incubators wants to have more women and youth involved in ag tech is what it comes down to.
Amy, thanks so much for sharing your experiences with us. I find it highly interesting that your project also looks at this from the perspective of women in farming. I know that Adrian has got taxes as a topic for one of our upcoming episodes, so we will be hearing more about that in due course. Don't just go away yet, Amy, because we will see you again at the end of the episode. Well, Amy has just given us some important insights into how female entrepreneurs have brought a different perspective to the agri-tech industry. But irrespective of who's developing ag-tech and where it's coming from, how is the average farmer responding to this ag-tech revolution? How useful will ag-tech be to them? Does it even offer them the solutions they need? Or is it, as some people say, a solution in search of a problem? Our next guest spends a lot of time researching this subject, in particular, how the impact of changes brought about by this fourth agricultural revolution will affect people, production, and the planet. Welcome, David Rose, from the University of Reading in the UK. Hello, David. Thank you for being with us.
Hello, thanks for having me.
I know Adrian has got questions lined up, so I will leave it to the two of you.
Thank you. David, hello. I know this is something that really holds a lot of interest for you, in particular the behavioural aspects of farmers, how they adopt new ideas and techniques. Tell us, are there lessons to learn from previous agricultural revolutions when it comes to ag tech? What needs to be in place for a farmer to adopt a new technology?
Yes, I think it's difficult with certainty to take lessons from previous agricultural revolutions and apply them to this one because the context differs. But I think there are 2 points that we can bear in mind for this revolution. So one is that technology change in agriculture tends to be slow. Not always if an innovation is cheap and easy and beneficial to adopt, but technology tends to take many decades to be adopted on a farm. And secondly, I think we can be careful not to overhype new technologies and understand that older innovations can be just as beneficial if adopted at scale. Now, in terms of what encourages farmers to adopt technology, we need to think of both technology and user readiness. So is the technology ready to be implemented on the farm? Is it reliable? Is it easy to use? Is it beneficial? Do current policy and regulations enable it to be used? And then on user readiness, is the farmer able to adopt the technology? Do they have the capital investment required to buy it? Do they have the skills and the training needed to use it? Do they have good farm infrastructure like broadband needed to use it? So both technology and user readiness need to be there to encourage technology to take off on a farm.
Now, you've mentioned a whole range of different aspects there, but particularly I think the point that springs to mind here is how some of those technologies and applications rely on an infrastructure which is provided by someone else, beyond the means or the capability or the influence of the farmer. How can we support adoption for those factors that are beyond the control of the innovative farmer or the entrepreneur?
So you're right, there's lots of stakeholders that can play a role in creating the conditions for farmers to adopt technology. And I think a key stakeholder is government. So they can play a key role in enabling a supporting environment for adoption. So they can set the right policy and regulations to encourage a farmer to adopt. They can use policy instruments to provide grants for farmers to adopt. They can make sure there is investment in skills, training, and infrastructure. And we as citizens have a role to play in encouraging government to put those right conditions in place to help farmers benefit from these technologies.
So even if all that infrastructure is in place, it's not then just a case of sitting back and waiting for farmers to get all enthusiastic about it, is it?
No, absolutely not. I think there's a certain amount of technology push and pull that is needed. You don't want just technology push where you're trying to force things onto farmers. You don't just want technology pull where you go and ask farmers what they want because they don't really all know what is scientifically possible. I think the best examples of I've seen is where technologies have been co-created between technology developers and users. So where farmers have been involved from the very start in the first seeds of the idea right the way through to implementation. So there's two good examples I can think of. One is the small robot company in the UK who are designing small autonomous robots. They were founded by farmers. Breeder, which is a company in the UK that makes an app to help livestock farmers, have farmers on their advisory board. So both companies can continually involve farmers and ask them, is what we're designing useful? Is it usable? Will it help you? And so those best examples of where there has been collaboration between technology developers, farmers, and users. And that really is the thing that helps relevant and usable tools be used on a farm. And I think we do need more of that. And we also have to remember that implementation on a farm is not the end of the story. Technology developers need to help farmers beyond the point at which they first adopt it. So if the technology goes wrong, it needs to be repaired. If farmers get into difficulty, there has to be a technical helpline to help them use the technology. So farmers need to be engaged with from the very start, but also after the technology has been implemented.
Yeah, there's quite a lot to think about there, isn't it, to get this out onto farm. And I think one of the things that really comes out from what you're saying is, despite all this hype about ag tech that we've seen in recent years, and certainly in the UK for about a decade or so now, you're saying that while ag tech represents a revolution for the farming sector, it's a bit of a slow-paced one, a slow-burning one.
I think so. I think it really depends what we mean by revolution. I think I'd argue that there never really has been a fast-paced revolution in farming. Technological change has always been one of evolution, of gradual change, but we do get carried away with trying to identify moments of rapid change, but that is underpinned by much slower changes that have been going on for some time. So I think it's true to say that technological change will be quicker if a technology is easy to adopt, if it's cheap, if it's beneficial, if the skills and training are there, if the infrastructure's there. Where technology requires much more radical changes, so changes to policy, changes to regulation, widespread new skills training and infrastructure, it's going to be a much more slow-paced revolution to scale that technology. But I think the key take-home message is change always happens on a farm, even if it takes time.
David, let's hope we don't have to wait too long.
Okay, David, thank you so much for your time, for your contribution, because it's of high importance to all of us. Please stay connected, and we will see you back at the end of the show. Thank you. Now, what about robots? That's some fascinating stuff. They've been a staple of science fiction for years, but in real life, we've been slow to adopt them. Our next and last guest is hoping farmers can be persuaded differently. Let me welcome him, Simone Scarabelli from Free Green Nature.
Thanks, Annalena. Hello, Adrian. It's a real pleasure to be here with you and your guests.
Thank you, Simone. Grazie. It's a pleasure to have you here. I leave you to Adrian.
Thank you. Simone, first things first, name of your company, Free Green Nature. That sounds to me like you've got a focus on sustainable agriculture.
You really got the point, Adrian. We believe that one of the main purposes of agritech is to make the entire sector more sustainable, to give people healthy food in a healthy environment. And we also know that agriculture will play a fundamental role in minimizing climate change. Free Green Nature wants to do this, its part, achieve this goal as soon as possible in an easy and accessible way.
Now, Simone, you see robots as a means to an end, don't you, rather than the goal itself? And for you, I think it seems to be all about the most appropriate use of technology.
Isn't that the best definition for technology? After all, it has always been like this. Technology is effective if it allows us to do what we already did in a better way, saving us time, money, and resources in the sense of environmental resources to try to give a better future to the next generation.
Let's move on to your robot itself. I think it's called Icaro X4. I know that it was built to be used in vineyards.
Yeah, Icaro X4 was in fact designed to be used in vineyards and more generally for fruit plants growing in rows, such as apple, for example. The intuition was born in 1992 from the Italian genius of Walter Mazzarolo, but at the time there were no conditions to make these robots. We only think about autonomous driving. Icaro X4 was created to eliminate the typical fungal disease of the vine with UVC rays, significantly reducing, if not eliminated, the chemicals that are normally used today to do this. Icaro X4 will have its memory, the GPS track of the route, and when the sensor algorithm in the field sees the condition, it starts in automatic mode even at night, while the farmers sleep peacefully.
That's very impressive. And when using it in the field, what's the maximum range and operating capacity of Icaro?
Yeah, this is the question that everyone asks to understand if it is right for them. Let's start from the fact that Icaro X4 is a hybrid robot in the sense that all the moving parts are electric, but since today in the most field there is no electricity and not have a huge battery with very long charging times, we have implemented a small diesel generation board which supplies all the necessary energy with a minimum environmental impact. Thanks to this, and based on the environmental condition of the season, we can cover an average of 12 to 15 hectares.
That's pretty impressive and quite a respectable offering. One thing I imagine, though, is you probably don't see every farmer having a swarm of these robots, though, do you?
We are not at all afraid of this, as we are a startup that has done all this with the private capital, without having huge public funding behind us. We have been very careful about the cost, and this also translates into the final cost that the farmer will have. They, on the other hand, will be able to benefit from increasing intensity to reduce the environmental impacts. So we are confident that in a few years, it will be normal to see robots in the field as it is normal to see a tractor today.
I'm very pleased to hear that confidence. And you heard David Rose just now talking about the problems, the barriers facing ag tech adoption in farming. You've taken your own steps to try to mitigate that, haven't you?
Yeah, David. Exactly explained how this factor is fundamental for the development on the whole agritech sector. In our case, in addition to the energy factor that I just mentioned, there is the RTK network.
Let me just stop you there. Can you explain RTK for the benefit of our viewers?
Yeah. RTK stands for real-time kinematic. In a nutshell, it is the system that allows the vehicle to understand where it is with an accuracy of 1-2 centimeters. It is the fundamental technology that makes autonomous driving possible. For this reason, we have also internally developed an RTK antenna that is used on board of the Icaro X4 and the base station that are used to refer to moving vehicles. It not only serves our vehicles, but its fundamental service can be provided to all vehicles that need to move precisely in the fields.
Simone, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you today. I think it's just a shame we couldn't have Icaro in the studio here as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a story I want to follow up closely, you know. Thank you again, and we will see you back at the end of the show. So, there you have it. AgTech explained in the flesh. Adrian, what do you think?
Well, and Helena, it was a bit of a whirlwind tour of AgTech, wasn't it? Many different facets. Of course, we've only scratched the surface. Lots of other things to discover. There are thousands of AgTech startups out there, each of them pursuing an idea or a concept that has the potential to improve or change the way farmers go about their everyday tasks of food production.
You're right, Adrian. So as a recap, as Omer explained, tractors are themselves becoming laden with tech features. Yet the workforce remains important, as Amy told us. But as David pointed out, there's always the risk that adoption of new technologies can often be slow. And as Simone explained, who wouldn't want to see their vineyards protected by the magnificent robot of free green nature, Icaro X4?
And Helena, that was an excellent summary. I think you're already taken by the subject, aren't you?
I am, aren't I? So now it's the time for our trends and talks. We have already analyzed many aspects of AgTech, but there is still something missing. We are about to invite our guests back on stage one more time, so Adrian can put one final question to them all for our parting thoughts. Let's welcome back Omer and Simone to the stage. Welcome back, gentlemen. Let's also reconnect to Amy and David online.
Good idea.
Welcome back to you as well. Adrian, over to you for your final question.
Thank you. Final point. I think there's one vital question to which we need to know the answer. I'm going to put it to each of you in turn, and just give me a short response for you. Which are the most important points? Now, what is the most significant thing we can do you think, to facilitate the adoption of AgTech within the industry? Omer, would you like to go first?
Brands need to improve their communication skills. As journalists, we have to make farmers feel like, wow, farming is a cool job.
Thank you. Nice to have that journalistic perspective on it. Amy, what do you think?
More education, mentorship, and training to develop the next generation for a new workforce for AgTech.
Very succinct. Thank you very much. David, can you chip in with your point of view? I know you've got a lot of subjects to cover, but what are the most salient for you?
I think to support farmers to adopt the technology. So providing grants to help them invest, providing better skills training, and improving farm infrastructure so they can take advantage of digital agricultural technologies.
Thank you for wrapping that up, David. From the commercial point of view, finally, Simone?
Yes, regarding the spread of output in agriculture in general, the generational turnover will certainly be an important accelerator, and at the same time it is more attractive for young people who want to enter this fundamental sector, also for their own health. On the other hand, the increasingly stringent regulation are reducing the environmental footprint in terms of lower carbon dioxide emission to limit water pollution and to safeguard biodiversity will lead the government to invest heavily in this sector. We can no longer afford to consume more resources that our planet can generate in a year.
Some terrific points to end on, nicely encapsulated there, Simone. Thank you, and thank you to all of you for being such animated and valuable guests this afternoon.
Well, that's it for this first episode. Thank you, Adrian, for all your expert questions. Thank you very much again to our dear guests here in the studio, Omer and Simone, and connected to us online, Amy and David. Thank you so much. And to our viewers at home, I hope you liked our new format, and I really hope that you will join us again for our next episode with another panel of guests, where we will look at another subject everyone is talking about, soil health. We will see you there, and until then, it's goodbye from me. See you next time.